All right, guys, I'm going to do something a little bit unusual today, so we're going to just go ahead and get straight over here to it. I've made myself very, very small here in the screen, let me make myself actually a little bit smaller, and I think if I'm right here, I'm going to be safe. We're going to look at the original demo for the old Pursue the Pennant baseball game, also known today as Diamond Mine Baseball. This is from 1993. You can find this yourself on the Internet Archive if you haven't seen it yet. You can see the game started to be created in 1987. This is Pursue the Pennant version 4.04. I'm going to say right now, if you have an earlier version of Pursue the Pennant, let me know, especially if it's on some sort of format that can be transmitted to me. I would love to see it. Anything you have that is before this or this version, I'm interested in. I do have a version of it that I haven't really messed around with yet in DOSBox or whatever I'm going to use on Linux. I can tell you that it's not this old. The older, the better. The older it is, the more interesting it is to me. So let's go take a look here. The reason why I want to show you this is to sort of show you where Diamond Mine came from and what's similar and what's different, right? So a look at this screen, right? How beautiful this game is, right? Nowadays, you just have a gray screen and there's menu options up above, and it's the same. Play, organize reports, transfer, create, schedule. It's almost the same thing, right? The differences are not that big, but today you can at least use your mouse instead of the keyboard, right? It's the most realistic game, blah, blah, blah. It's easy to use. The computer does all the work. You decide what to do. You can do all sorts of different stuff. Interesting thing to note is that as I've gone through this and looked, it appears that there is not a real-life lineup option in this version of Pursue the Pennant. That didn't come on until later. If you're playing a season replay, you're kind of using pre-generated lineups, or you're making your own lineup decisions game by game, which is kind of like how we do them, on this channel. It's interesting to note how different things were back then. There were righty-lefty matchups, however. And the game will keep track of stuff like pitcher fatigue and stuff like that. That was very revolutionary at the time. This is what the schedule looks like. This schedule screen, if you've ever played Diamond Mine, should look familiar, right? Because on this screen, you have basic information, the date of the game, you have home and away team, and you have also well, it's a little bit different here. I can see that what they've done is they've got this organized basically by series, right? And then it has the series number there on the left side. So it is a little bit different than what you would expect now. I would tell you as well that this has got to be really confusing. If you were somebody who's brand new to this and you came across this from playing, I don't know, APBA or Strat-O-Matic, you'd be like, what? Anyway, we'll go through here and see what we can find. This is how far we played so far in this demo season. The Braves and Pirates both at the top of their respective divisions. We have display mode as show all plays as opposed to line score only. I don't know the difference. Speed of play results has changed to medium, and both teams will be managed by the human. I don't know how good the computer manager was then. This is the interesting thing here, right? So this is very, very similar to the screen you see now for fatigue, where you can go back, you can look what's happened in the 4 most recent games. You can see the real-life statistics. You can see their durability ratings, whether the player is available or tired or other, as we'll see here in a second. We can see your options are available, tired, injured. Nowadays, it doesn't even show up if they're injured, currently in the lineup, or has been used already in the game. It's the same thing as the game today. In fact, this screen is almost the exact same screen as you see now, except that you also have a column for the simulation stats. It'll tell you as well if the guy is righty or lefty, is what it was just telling us. Now, the cool thing here is that these numbers here, because there's not a pitch-by-pitch system in this old version, this is the number of batters faced. In other words, fatigue for Diamond Mine or Pursue the Pennant back then was based on batters faced, not on pitches thrown, which I think you could argue would be more realistic and would give you better results for older seasons. So, I mean, you can go one way or you can go the other way. My gut feeling is that this type of system probably gets you results for, say, 1949 that will work better than the pitch-by-pitch mode. But I might be wrong. It's hard to say without playing it. Here's the real ugly stat screen. I like the stat screen now because this is just too much information all at once. I'm like, why do I have to see the pitcher's batting statistics at the top, right? I don't care. Anyway, and then the fielding statistics are all very, very basic. It's very general, right? Some things are the same, though. You'll see the pitching ratings are the same as we have now, right? Durability is the same thing. And ratings as a hitter: bunt, average; run, fair; steal, poor; hold, average. And then the jam and injury ratings are also the same, right? So it's exactly the same type of game that you have today. I mean, it uses basically the same ratings, and here it is explained. 5 different codes for all ratings. Interestingly enough, if you want to know where this is from, I think this comes from Strat-O-Matic. So it's interesting that both the Pursue the Pennant board game and the computer game had these kind of ratings. The board game and the computer game were not the same game, right? So the board game came first. It was good old Mike Klaczynski. Mike, I'm sorry if you're watching this. I probably said your name wrong. But Mike is the one who made it up in Wisconsin, I think is where he's at. Chicago, Wisconsin, somewhere up in the Midwest. Pursue the Pennant is interesting because if you play it, especially the very first version, you can see the Strat-O-Matic influence all throughout, you know. This game, of course, is different. It has a different game engine with a lot more possibilities, but also at the heart of it kind of is this sort of Strat-O-Matic approach to fielding ratings and to stuff like that. Interesting to note, it's much different than the APBA approach. That's the main point. When it comes to like which game wins Strat-O-Matic or APBA, in a manner of thinking, you can say that Strat-O-Matic won because its influence was larger. APBA might even have a larger playing base, though that probably is not true anymore. I think a lot of those gamers have passed away, but Strat-O-Matic has definitely had the greater impact on the gaming industry as a whole. So here you go. There's your scale ratings for Pursue the Pennant. We compare the statistics. I mean, you know, whatever. This is all designed to be a demo to get you to buy the game, so you say how realistic this is and stuff. Not for Tom Glavine, who was 11-8 by this point in time in the replay. Let's see if there's anything else interesting that stands out. Only 2 complete games. And I mean, the strikeouts are up where they need to be, but not pitching as well as he could and probably giving up more hits than you would like. So anyway, we choose the pitchers, and then we're going to choose the lineups. Now, the interesting thing here about the lineups is that Pursue the Pennant back then had the same thing that Diamond Mine has today, where every team has a versus left-handed pitchers and versus right-handed pitchers lineup by default, and you can just sort of select them. In my replay, I've accidentally overwritten some of those for 1949 because I went to save my lineup for what I want it to be, and I saved it in the wrong slot. I mean, who cares? Whatever. I'm not going to use the default lineup, not for what I'm doing. So there you have it. And you go through this lineup screen. Now, imagine trying to set up your lineup, as much fun as it is now. Imagine trying to set it up all with a keyboard, because that's what you're doing here. Not a very easy task, right? This is why I wish I had a playable version of the game with an old season, because then we could figure out how easy or how difficult it is. Here's your game screen. What a beautiful game screen. Let me tell you, this is just an absolute work of art, right? So you miss the ballpark diagrams, which is right here on the right side, this kind of weird looking thing. That's the ballpark, right? So everywhere you go, it's not even green, it's blue. It's, you know, love ya blue, 1979, Houston Oilers, right? That's how this is set up. This box here that has the red thing that is telling us all about the game, that box is where the play-by-play goes, as we're going to see in a second. So that's what it's telling us, trying to explain everything to us. You know, at the bottom it'll tell you, just as it does today, what the defense chooses, what the offense chooses, and how the infield's set up. You have to do that for every single play, which is kind of a dumb thing. It should be easier to set it once and kind of forget it. That's what OOTP does. That's a better choice, honestly. Diamond Mine just didn't change. Now, you'll notice that some of this is the same, right? Selecting infield positioning is the same as it is today, the same options exactly, right? And then strategy for offense and defense is more or less the same. You can hit and run on offense, and you can steal. On defense, you cannot call for a throw to first, apparently, which is interesting. You also cannot call for a pitch out. All that stuff has come later into the game. And then here's your play-by-play. Ground ball to second. Lynn gloves it and fires to first, out at first. That's not play-by-play that's going to make it on my, great play-by-play list on the blog. Thank you, Jack Wood, for making it a little bit better. And then you kind of go through the game like this. So here's the defensive strategy. See, you don't have that many options. You can challenge him or pitch around him or intentionally walk him. I don't know why Tom Tippett had challenge and then pitch around a batter as 2 different choices. I think only very, very few people will ever pitch around a hitter. I never do, That's not true. Sometimes I will, but not very frequently. Most hitters don't need that. I just noticed something else too. Barry Bonds in left field has excellent fielding and excellent range ratings, or throwing ratings or whatever. Like, did you watch baseball in 1992? Anyway, so there's a fly ball to Bonds in left field. Again, not a great example of play-by-play. And now you can see we've gone ahead here in the game. If you look down at the bottom, we've gone ahead to, what is this, the top of the 7th. Once the runner goes on base, David Justice on base now, the same ratings are up there now: running rating, stealing rating, his jump rating. And then there'll be another base hit. We think Doug Drabeck's starting to tire, so we take him out. Go bring in another pitcher, the same thing that you see today. There's a wild pitch from the new pitcher right away. This is interesting. So there's an option for both managers: offense, send him home, yes or no; defense, throw home, yes or no. And you have your selection. It's the same game as it is today. Even the scoring outcomes there at the bottom are exactly the same, right? Fascinating stuff. We'll go ahead and play along. This game will take us here through the end. So Mason strikes out. And if I remember right, this thing will finally bring us here to the end of the ball game, which is kind of where we want to go. Yeah, we just sort of have one thing after another happen. We'll kind of get here to the end. There we go. So it's a double for McClendon. Barry Bonds, who's hitting 5th for some reason, comes up and hits a double. New pitcher comes in. It's going to be Mark Wohlers. He gives up another double. And then there's a ground ball, 1 out. And we'll have a pinch hitter. It's going to be Cole, who comes in for the Pirates. Lines out, so 2 away, 3-3 ball game. And there's a base hit by Lavalier. And that brings up, that ends up being a hit for the, that scores the final run. And so the final score ends up being 4-3 Pirates. So there you have it. Interesting stuff. Here's your box score, right? At least half of it. This is the expanded box score. So there's a newspaper and an expanded style. I usually use a newspaper style because expanded is just too many columns for my my brain. And there's the other version of it. There's how the pitchers did in this game. Glavine, tough luck. They probably shouldn't have brought Wohlers in. And this is the interesting part. This is the score sheet. This score sheet should look familiar to you if you've played Diamond Mine. I usually don't show this, but this score sheet is exactly the same score sheet that you have today. Nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing has changed. I mean, nothing has changed at all. Even the note 1 thing that has the explanation of what happened in the longer play is the same. Everything is exactly the same. Here's the Pittsburgh score sheet. Look at that. It's the same. 100% the same. We'll look at some of these other features here. I know this is long. My apologies. Here, let's look at manager profiles. And look at this. Manager profile, bunting neutral, hit and run neutral, all this stuff. Interesting. It's exactly the same as it is right now. Everything is the same, right? Fascinating, fascinating stuff. Pursue the Pennant has studied play-by-play data to analyze the frequency with which each of these tactics are deployed by real-life managers and how the frequencies are affected by the innings, numbers of outs, current score, base runner locations, the ability of players involved, particularly ballpark, and many other factors. Somebody call Tom Tango. This is really interesting stuff, though, because I'm not sure that Diamond Mine's basic, the guts of the system have been updated since when this was made in the late 80s. Fascinating stuff, isn't it? You can also have the computer managed teams. You can have games played automatically. There's a pitching chart, which is similar to today. This is not quite as good as today's chart. Today's is so much easier to look at, gives you more options. Here's the depth chart. This looks absolutely awful. Wow. Yeah, not very well done. Let's see if we can look at other features as well. So there's the organized screen, which has era, league, park, team, rosters, the same as it is today. Here's the era you can choose, and it will tell you as well. All Pursue the Pennant players are rated for their performance against their average performance of players in their era. For example, a 280 hitter is above average if the league batting average for his era is 260, but below average if the era has a 290 average. This allows you to play realistic games between players from vastly different eras. Pursue the Pennant defines an era as one season. All right, same concept as it is today. And here's ballpark factors. And look, they're exactly the same as they are now. Remember, this is 1993, right? I mean, this is one of the reasons why I would love to see version 1 or version 2 of this game, because my feeling is that it's also the same. Fascinating stuff, really is. You can go to reports. They're designed to be easy to read and understand. So there's your expanded team standings. That's easy to understand. This is the same. This is also in today's game, exactly the same. This is also exactly the same stuff, right? You can look at some hitting statistics and it'll give you hitting leaders. Yep, this is the same. And the stats here are kind of more of your basic stuff. There is walks per 9 innings, hits per 9 innings, runs per 9 innings, or runners, I'm sorry, per 9 innings, and then some basic fielding statistics for each position. There's team-by-team statistics, which I suppose you can compare with real life if you're interested enough in that. Team-by-team fielding statistics as well. There is the transfer option, which means you can pirate your season. You can share your replay with someone else. You can create players yourself. Pursue the Pennant will help you create information that is not there. So if you don't have separate totals for left and right-handed opponents, Pursue the Pennant creates left-right splits based on historical averages. Or if you don't know how many doubles, triples, or home run a pitcher allowed, Pursue the Pennant makes assumptions based on our own studies and the relationship between ERA and slugging percentage allowed. Interesting. Then it adjusts the results to reflect the error for the player, which is interesting. It's another sort of sabermetric question for people. Probably have already studied it, but for dumb people like me, it's interesting. This is how you create a player. This isn't very interesting to us. It shows you how to put things in, how to put in the range and stuff like that. You can create or modify the schedule. This would be very difficult to do using DOS. You can move teams from one database to another easily. I don't know if it's that easy today, actually. Might be fun to play around with. And there is a setup command as well that will let you change the background from blue to something else, change your display colors to something else. So we could play this in night mode, which is how I'd want to play it, and all sorts of stuff. So check this out here at the end. Thank you for coming to the end of this video, by the way. All of the features and functions you have seen demonstrated, computer manager, drafting, schedule creation, player creation, team transfer, report generation, and much more, along with the 1992 season player disc, are included in PC Baseball version 4.04 for only $74.95 plus shipping and handling. And as a special bonus, when you order, write down demo offer on your order and get any past season player disc from 1986 to 1991, normally $24.95 for only $15, or order 2 past season discs for the combined price of $25. Wow. So we'll go over here to the end. There's your order number, and then we go back to the C drive, and that does it. And let's see, there we go. It releases my mouse in the end. It's interesting there at the end because what I recall is that when I first started playing Diamond Mine Baseball back in 2002, my dad and I bought the game. We paid $75 for it. I remember that. And we split the cost, right? Because it was a very, very expensive game. And that $75, I think, included the 2001 season, right? It's interesting how the cost of the game has gone down as time has gone on. So today, Diamond Mine Baseball will cost you, I think it's like $30 for the full game, something like that. Maybe it's a little bit more. Season discs, if they are the deluxe season discs, still cost $25. The non-deluxe ones will cost less. So the discs you would have ordered back then have actually gone down in price, which is fascinating. Anyway, so lots of interesting stuff to look at here. You are, though, looking at a game that's functionally the same as it was back in 1993. There are differences. I mean, obviously, pitch-by-pitch mode is a huge difference, but the differences are not as big as you might think. And so something to sort of keep in mind. It's not a good or bad thing, but like I said, if anybody has any version of this game, that version 4.04 or earlier, please let me know, because I would love to get a copy, especially if you have something that's already like converted to a computer file format in like a zip file or something like that. Don't worry about if it's only compatible with this or that type of computer. I have the tools to make it work. But yeah, let me know, and especially anything season disc or anything from back then, let me know, because I would just love to have it and play with it, maybe even do a project with it and see what it would be like. We'll leave it at that. I'll talk with you again tomorrow. Talk to you then. Bye.